The world wasn't kind to Kenji. His only friends were the bruises on his knees. One afternoon, shame burning hotter than the sun, he fled into the silent embrace of the forest. There, nestled amongst ancient roots, a stone pulsed with an otherworldly light. He reached out, a single touch, and power, raw and wild, flooded his veins. Kenji rose, a storm gathering in his once timid eyes. The classroom walls felt like they were closing in on Kenji. A circle of jeering faces, led by the school's notorious bullies, surrounded him. "What's this artist boy?" one sneered, snatching his sketchbook. The pages, filled with his soul, were flipped through with mocking laughter. A close-up captures the silent pain twisting Kenji's expression. Couldn't take it anymore. Kenji bolted, a desperate blur escaping the school's suffocating hallways. He ran without thinking, his feet carrying him into the deepening shadows of the ancient forest bordering the town as the sun bled across the horizon. Deeper in the woods, a root caught his foot, sending him sprawling to the damp earth. As tears of frustration and despair welled in his eyes, a soft, rhythmic glow caught his attention. It emanated from a hollow log nearby, a gentle pulse in the growing darkness. Intrigued, he crawled closer. Nestled inside was a crystalline stone, no bigger than his fist, humming with a strange power. Ancient, unfamiliar runes were etched into its smooth, glowing surface. Hesitantly, he reached out and his fingers brushed against the stone. An immense surge of blue energy erupted from it, engulfing him in a blinding white light. The world vanished in the overpowering torrent of power flowing into him. As the light faded, Kenji slowly got to his feet. He stared at his hands, which now sizzled with raw, untamed energy. Clenching his fist, a new, unshakable determination replaced the fear in his eyes. The school hallway, once a gauntlet of fear, now felt different under Kenji's confident stride. He wasn't afraid anymore. As if on cue, his former bullies, with Ryo at the front, blocked his path. Their usual sneers were met with a calm gaze. Ryo's fist flew towards Kenji's face, a familiar, brutish arc. But this time it stopped cold. Kenji caught it effortlessly, his palm igniting with a soft blue energy. A gentle shove sent Ryo stumbling backward, his face a mask of disbelief as he hit the floor. The power dynamic had irrevocably shifted. Suddenly, a deafening explosion tore a hole in the school wall. Concrete and dust rained down, and chaos erupted as screams echoed through the corridor. The air grew thick with smoke and fear. From the newly formed breach, the menacing leader of the Shadow Syndicate emerged, flanked by his cloaked minions. Panic took hold, and students scattered, desperate to escape the sudden, terrifying invasion. In the ensuing mayhem, the villains cornered the bullies. Ryo and his crew, so formidable moments ago, were now just terrified kids, utterly defenseless against a true threat. Then a brilliant flash of blue light cut through the smoke. Kenji stood before them, his body alight with crackling energy. He placed himself between the villains and his classmates, no longer a victim, but their protector. His journey from victim to hero was complete. Ignited in a blaze of newfound power, with a roar, Kenji surges forward, his fists crackling with azure energy. He unleashes a torrential onslaught of brilliant blue blasts, each one aimed to shatter the Shadow Syndicate leader's resolve. The air crackles and hums with raw power, a desperate gambit to end the conflict. The leader, however, remains unimpressed. With a casual flick of his wrist, a crimson shield materializes, deflecting every single attack as if they were mere annoyances. He counters with a single contemptuous strike of red energy, a blow so potent it sends Kenji flying backward, his powered form flickering under the strain. Towering over the prone hero, the leader scoffs, gathering a swirling vortex of abyssal energy. A monstrous beam of pure darkness erupts, consuming Kenji in its path. The impact hurls him against a pile of shattered concrete, his blue aura sputtering out like a dying flame as he slumps into unconsciousness. "Is this the extent of your power, hero?" the villain sneers, stepping over the debris. Pathetic. He raises a hand, ready to deliver the final, crushing blow. But in the darkness of his mind, Kenji sees it all again. The years of torment, the feeling of utter helplessness, and then, the moment he found the glowing stone a promise of strength, a flicker of light. His eyes snap open, no longer blue, but blazing with a blinding, incandescent white. An immense wave of pure energy explodes outwards, forcing the leader back. Slowly, Kenji rises, his body now a nexus of unimaginable power. Chunks of rubble lift from the ground, orbiting him as if caught in his personal gravity. The air thrums with a pressure far exceeding anything before. He looks at the stunned villain, his gaze no longer that of a fighter, but of an inevitable force filled with unwavering determination.
In a world where the line between ordinary and extraordinary is about to blur, one young man's destiny is forged in the fires of adversity, heralding the dawn of a new era. The shadows in the forgotten corners of town had always been a refuge for Mark and his crew. But one day, they found something more than just solitude. It was a dark, cracked artifact pulsing with a malevolent light. As Mark's hand closed around it, a chaotic red energy erupted. Raw, untamed power twisted their malice into destructive force. They were no longer just bullies, found abilities to shatter concrete and hurl blasts of pure chaos. They began to terrorize the very streets they once roamed, their laughter echoing like a storm warning as the town trembled under their reign. Meanwhile, far from the unfolding chaos, Alex's journey was taking a different path. Under the watchful eye of his mentor, Kalen, the quiet resolve that had always defined him was sharpened into a formidable weapon. Hours of relentless training transformed his latent abilities into refined skills. He learned to channel his power not with anger, but with a sense of calm and purpose. Each movement became precise, each decision calculated. No longer a boy running from his past, but a hero preparing for his future, ready to face the darkness he knew was coming. His training was complete and his spirit was steeled. The inevitable clash arrived without warning. The town square, once a place of community and peace, became a canvas for destruction. Mark and his cronies reveled in their power, tearing down lampposts and terrorizing civilians, just as a wave of red energy hurtled towards a fleeing family. Between the aggressors and the innocent, a silent guardian against the storm. The moment of confrontation was electric. The bullied had returned to face his tormentors, not as a victim, but as a protector. What followed was a symphony of motion and power. The battle was a blur of speed and strategy against raw, uncontrolled force. A montage of the epic fight would show Alex moving like lightning, a stark contrast to the bully's clumsy, rage-fueled attacks. He bolts, singing past him as he deflected debris with calculated precision. His every action dedicated to protecting the innocent people caught in the crossfire. He moved with a grace that belied the immense power he wielded, turning the bully's strength against them. The chaos of the group battle eventually distilled into a singular conflict. It was Alex versus Mark, a final showdown in the heart of the ravaged square. Mark, consumed by the artifact's chaotic energy, unleashed a torrent of raw strength, expecting to overwhelm his old victim. But Alex was no longer the boy he remembered. He met Mark's brute force with skill and precision, deflecting, parrying, and striking with a fighter's intellect. In a final, decisive move, Alex channeled his energy not into a destructive blow, but into a focused pulse that targeted the artifact's power source. As the red energy dissipated, Mark and his followers collapsed. The chaotic power drained from them, leaving them merely weakened and defeated. Alex stood tall amidst the wreckage, not as a victor gloating over his vanquished foes, but as the town's steadfast protector. The whispers of the crowd were not of fear, but of hope. This was not the end of his story. His journey as a hero was only just beginning, a symbol of resilience and courage for all to see. In a world where the line between ordinary and extraordinary is about to blur, one young man's destiny is forged in the fires of adversity, heralding the dawn of a new era. The shadows in the forgotten corners of town had always been a refuge for Mark and his crew. But one day, they found something more than just solitude. It was a dark, cracked artifact pulsing with a malevolent light. As Mark's hand closed around it, a chaotic red energy erupted. Raw, untamed power twisted their malice into destructive force. They were no longer just bullies, found abilities to shatter concrete and hurl blasts of pure chaos. They began to terrorize the very streets they once roamed, their laughter echoing like a storm warning as the town trembled under their reign. Meanwhile, far from the unfolding chaos, Alex's journey was taking a different path. Under the watchful eye of his mentor, Kalen, the quiet resolve that had always defined him was sharpened into a formidable weapon. Hours of relentless training transformed his latent abilities into refined skills. He learned to channel his power not with anger, but with a sense of calm and purpose. Each movement became precise, each decision calculated. No longer a boy running from his past, but a hero preparing for his future, ready to face the darkness he knew was coming. His training was complete and his spirit was steel. The inevitable clash arrived without warning. The town square, once a place of community and peace, became a canvas for destruction. Mark and his cronies reveled in their power, tearing down lampposts and terrorizing civilians, just as a wave of red energy hurtled towards a fleeing family. Between the aggressors and the innocent, a silent guardian against the storm. The moment of confrontation was electric. The bullied had returned to face his tormentors, not as a victim, but as a protector. What followed was a symphony of motion and power. The battle was a blur of speed and strategy against raw, uncontrolled force. A montage of the epic fight would show Alex moving like lightning, a stark contrast to the bully's clumsy, rage-fueled attacks. Bolts singing past him as he deflected debris with calculated precision. His every action dedicated to protecting the innocent people caught in the crossfire. He moved with a grace that belied the immense power he wielded, turning the bully's strength against them. The chaos of the group battle eventually distilled into a singular conflict. It was Alex versus Mark, a final showdown in the heart of the ravaged square. Mark, consumed by the artifact's chaotic energy, unleashed a torrent of raw strength, expecting to overwhelm his old victim. But Alex was no longer the boy he remembered. He met Mark's brute force with skill and precision, deflecting, parrying, and striking with a fighter's intellect. In a final, decisive move, Alex channeled his energy not into a destructive blow, but into a focused pulse that targeted the artifact's power source. As the red energy dissipated, Mark and his followers collapsed. The chaotic power drained from them, leaving them merely weakened and defeated. Alex stood tall amidst the wreckage, not as a victor gloating over his vanquished foes, but as the town's steadfast protector. The whispers of the crowd were not of fear, but of hope. This was not the end of his story. His journey as a hero was only just beginning, a symbol of resilience and courage for all to see. The world trembled as the mountain split asunder, birthing a cataclysm of fire and ash. From the molten heart of the volcano, defying deity of living flame and smoldering rock, its eyes burned with the intensity of twin suns, and with every step it scorched the verdant land, turning forests to cinders and rivers to steam. The god of fire had awakened, and its malevolent presence cast a shroud of despair across the horizon, promising an age of unending desolation under a sky choked with soot. From his village, nestled at the foot of the blighted mountain, Kenji, a young warrior with eyes as determined as forged steel, watched the encroaching inferno. The screams of his people were carried on the hot wind, a lament that ignited a fire within his own soul, of his people's anguish. Within the village shrine, he retrieved the ancestral sword, a blade passed down through generations of guardians. As his fingers wrapped around the hilt, the weapon responded, its steel surface shimmering with a faint, ethereal blue light, a stark contrast to the destructive orange glow consuming the world outside. With the weight of his lineage in his hand and a silent vow upon his lips, he set out towards the roaring peak. The air grew thick and scorching as Kenji ascended the volcano, the ground itself a treacherous crust of cooling lava. At the summit, amidst a maelstrom of fire and molten rock, the god of fire turned its blistering gaze upon the lone mortal. The confrontation began without a word. The deity unleashed massive fireballs, each one a miniature sun, and sent waves of liquid rock crashing toward the warrior. But Kenji was a blur of motion, his lightweight armor allowing him to weave through the chaos with preternatural agility. He dodged, he ducked. He leaped over fissures that opened beneath his feet, his glowing sword deflecting searing projectiles and leaving trails of blue light in the suffocating air. Through the blinding curtain of heat and flame, Kenji's sharp eyes detected a flicker within the god's chest. It was a core of solidified magma, pulsing with a rhythm that was the source of the entity's immense power, its very heart. This was its weakness, the single point of vulnerability in an otherwise impervious being. Gathering every ounce of his strength, his courage, and the ancestral power flowing through his veins, Kenji channeled it all into his blade. Pure energy against the raging inferno. With a final desperate cry that echoed across the desolate peak, he leaped high into the air, a shooting star of defiance aimed at the heart of destruction, the magma core, and a brilliant flash of blue light erupted from within the fire god. A sound like shattering obsidian filled the air as cracks spider-webbed across its molten form. The eyes dimming before it crumbled, shattering into a cascade of cooling rock and fading embers that hissed as they fell. Exhausted but trying, the silent peak leaning heavily on his sword. As if cleansed by his sacrifice, the ash-filled sky began to clear, and a gentle rain started to fall, washing away the soot and promising new life to the scorched and broken earth. The clash of steel rings in the air, a symphony of destruction set against a backdrop of molten rock and roaring flames. Kenji, his form silhouetted against the inferno, raises his blade, the legendary Soulfire Saber, for one final strike. He is the chosen one, the hero prophesied to end the reign of terror. Before him, the god of fire, a colossal being of magma and obsidian, bellows in fury, its very presence scorching the heavens. With a warrior's cry that echoes with the courage of 1,000 ancestors, Kenji lunges forward. The blade descends, a streak of pure, celestial light, piercing the god's fiery heart. A cataclysmic explosion of light and shadow erupts. And then, silence. The world is saved. A shrill, incessant beeping shatters the heroic silence. Kenji's eyes flutter open, the epic battlefield dissolving into the familiar, mundane posters on his bedroom wall. The Soulfire Saber is gone, replaced by the weight of his rumpled duvet. It was just a dream, another fleeting escape. He drags himself out of bed, the exhaustion of his nightly quests seeping into his bones, leaving him weary before the day has even begun. He pulls on his school uniform, a drab armor for a battle he can never win. Looking in the mirror, he doesn't see a heroic warrior, just a tired teenage boy with messy black hair and shadows under his eyes. The school hallways are a different kind of war zone, one of whispers and cold shoulders. Kenji keeps his head down, trying to become invisible, to navigate the crowded corridors without incident. But invisibility is a luxury he is never afforded. A heavy hand slams into his shoulder, violently shoving him against the cold metal of a locker. The impact rattles his teeth. "Watch where you're going, dreamer," a voice sneers. It's Mark, his larger frame casting a predatory shadow. His usual cronies flank him, their faces twisted into identical masks of cruel amusement. Kenji just wants to be left alone, to retreat back into the world where he is strong, where he is a hero. Kenji mutters an apology, trying to sidestep the group, but Mark blocks his path. "Not so fast," Mark says, his voice unnervingly calm. Kenji looks up and a jolt of pure ice shoots through his veins. Mark's eyes, normally just a dull brown, are now glowing with a faint, malevolent red light, like embers in a dying fire. A cruel smirk spreads across Mark's face as he shoves Kenji again. But this is no ordinary shove. An unseen force, raw and impossibly strong, launches Kenji off his feet. He slides halfway down the polished hallway floor, his backpack scraping loudly against the linoleum. The laugh, faint, crackling tendrils of dark energy, like miniature bolts of black lightning, dance menacingly around their fingertips. The hallway transforms into a stage for Kenji's humiliation. It's no longer just shoves and insults. One of Mark's friends flicks his wrist, and an invisible force trips Kenji as he scrambles to get up. They cackle as he sprawls onto the floor again. Mark gestures casually, and a wave of kinetic energy slams a nearby locker door shut with a deafening bang, right next to Kenji's head. They toy with him, using their newfound, terrifying powers to push and pull him like a puppet, their laughter echoing through the now empty corridor. Each supernatural push is a physical manifestation of their contempt, a brutal reminder of his powerlessness. Kenji lies broken on the floor, the stark white linoleum a cold testament to his defeat. The pain is a dull throb, but it's the despair that truly crushes him. He is the hero who slays gods in his sleep, but in the waking world, he is less than nothing. He looks up, his vision blurry with unshed tears. Above him, Mark and his friends stand tall, their smirking faces framed by the dim hallway light, their eyes glowing with a dark, triumphant energy. Kenji's expression is a shattered mosaic of fear and absolute hopelessness. The last vestiges of the dream warrior extinguished by a nightmare that has become his reality.